On July 1st, I woke up with this crazy idea of a board game that I wanted to create. It was a mixture of some of my favorite board game elements: map building, resource management, fighting and combat. And it was something that just I couldn't shake throughout the rest of the morning. So I shared the idea with my wife, and she said it sounded interesting. And I spent the rest of the afternoon and evening cutting out foam core, putting Post-it notes down, and then eventually sitting down and playing it with my wife for the very first time. It was a prototype. At least at the time I didn't realize it was a prototype, but it was something I sat down and tried with my wife. We got done playing. She looked across at me and she said, "Well, that wasn't fun." And I think if anybody's designed a board game before, we all experienced that first playthrough of like, that's not what I expected it to be. But she looked at me and she said, "If you change some things, this could be fun." So we worked on it. And I shared it with one of my good friends, the idea of this game where there's a map with two different sides and you've got to explore, and ultimately you're working towards defeating this final boss battle, and you got to build your character up and move on. And he looks at me and he says, "Greg, you got an idea there. You've got a really good idea there. This has legs. You should go for it." And beyond that, Greg, he's like, "I know you well enough that this is something I can see in your eyes. You have passion about this. And you should go for this, not just for this game, but I could see you being the type of guy that is able to publish game after game." I don't know if that's the truth, if that's ever going to be the case, but I know I need to publish this game. And I knew it in that moment. So that was July 7th. And I decided at that moment I was going to challenge myself to design, develop, and ultimately launch a Kickstarter for this game in 90 days. It was do or die. I wanted to fail fast. I wanted to learn quickly from this first game in my mind. And that's what I'd like to talk to you guys about today, is that story of what I've learned over the last, we're now at day 76. Over the last 76 days, what I've learned about designing, developing, publishing, launching, fulfillment, all the things across there at a high level, what I've learned by starting Die Alone Games. The first question I always get asked is, why 90 days? Why not 120? Why not even just 100 days? Why 90 days? At a surface level, I've been in sales for over 15 years. That's my day job. I do business consulting and sales for a large tech company in San Antonio, Texas. And I've been doing that for logistics companies and transportation companies and now tech companies for 15 plus years. And the one thing that's been drilled into me is that goal of 90 days, of having to hit quota every single quarter. That internal rhythm is there for me of, you've got to hit that quota, you've got to hit that quota, you've got to hit that quota. So my brain, my rhythms, my lifestyle fits into 90 days. But that's me personally. Why 90 days then? Why not two sets of 90 days? Why aren't we talking 180 days? Why aren't we talking a year? Designing a board game and developing it and launching it and ultimately publishing it is no small feat. And trust me, whenever I decided to do this on around July 7th, I had no clue what I was walking into. If I was to go back and talk to past Greg at that point and say, "Here's what you need to do," I would tell him, what we're gonna do is we're gonna focus solely on designing this concept for the first 90 days. And then I would say the next part is developing that concept, doing a lot more play testing than I've been able to do. And then last but not least, while you're doing all that, you need to learn about the whole publishing part of this, about manufacturing, about ultimate fulfillment, learning about Kickstarters and how they work even more, building a network of people. And then ultimately over that entire, what would be that 9-month period, that's what I tell past Greg to do. Then you launch that Kickstarter, you run that Kickstarter and everything in the third quarter. And that's a good rhythm. You'll be healthy. You won't be up late at night, freaked out of your mind what you're gonna do. But I said 90 days. And the reason I said 90 days beyond just my internal rhythms is there's one thing that I've learned doing creative projects over the years outside of my job. I've owned a leatherworking business, I've done communications, I've done different personal artistic projects. And 90 days for me is the perfect amount of time to accomplish something and to avoid procrastination. It puts a constraint on you that makes you stay focused on the task ahead of you. And so whatever you're doing, if it's designing, developing, or if it's something even outside of this that you're thinking about doing, I would say that's the first place I would recommend anybody do, is put that constraint of time on it. That way you have to make the decisions. The reason you can't procrastinate is you have to make decisions. Every single day you have to try to determine what you're going to accomplish for that day or you won't meet the deadline. So the reason in sales, every single day I have to call customers, I have to reach out to them, I have to talk to them, I have to build relationships with them. Because at the end of the day, if I don't do that, I'm a day behind. And that clock is still ticking. If you do game design or development, you notice this is a mechanic a lot of times we use in games to build tension. It's some kind of a time element, number of rounds, turns, cards. Once they run out, the game's over, or you miss an opportunity. And in that same way with that game mechanic in game design, it's something you can do to game it yourself. To game yourself to actually be more productive, to create, and to make something bigger than what you could ultimately have done if you gave yourself unlimited time to achieve your goal. I talk with people a lot of times about creativity and being artistic, doing new projects or ideas and trying to be innovative. And every single time people think that in order to be creative, it's all about having unlimited resources or having, maybe not unlimited, but a lot of resources, being able to have a lot of time, materials, money, equipment. And it's always this, I could be more creative if only I had fill in the blank. Whether that's better camera equipment, whether it's a better computer or technology, more people, more time, more money. It's always about more. And what I've found over the years, and as I've studied this concept of creativity and innovation, the times that I've seen people be the most creative in their life is not the times when they have the most opportunity in front of them, but whenever they have the most constraints put upon them. For me, that was the second reason with 90 days. I knew that if I limited myself to 90 days, that I would be forced to make decisions inside of that constraint. That there wouldn't be enough time to raise extra money, that there wouldn't be enough time to find a huge team of people, that ultimately I would have to make decisions based upon what God had given me. That I would have to make the hard decisions. And because of that, I would have to be more innovative. For me, this led to several things in this process that I've had to do. First was I remember wanting an artist and trying to figure out who would be the illustrator behind this and reaching out to a few different artists and getting back to them, and nobody in their right mind willing to work within the constraints of a 90-day window. And actually at that time, it was probably less, because by the time I had a good design game in my mind that I could actually figure out what kind of art I would need behind it and a theme to go with that, there was even less time for the artist to work with me. Which led me then to the next thing that I tried to do, which was, okay, I'll make some placeholders. And I knew I wanted this aesthetic originally of watercolor ink combination as far as a medium and what it would look like. And I wasn't too hammered down as far as, oh, I want it to be this fanciful world and to look like this. It was okay, but I knew I loved that aesthetic of watercolors with ink on top of it. And I found an artist that could do that, but we were working back and forth. And so in the time, I was like, I need to get some kind of a game to be able to play test, to get up on Tabletop Simulator, to be able to work with it that way. And so I went out and got some watercolor paints and watercolor paper brushes, watched some YouTube videos, and taught myself how to paint with watercolors really quickly. I didn't paint well. And if you ever go back and look at some of my videos, you can see some of those. It was literally just something to get it done. And it was by doing that constraint, it forced me to make the decision of, okay, I need to make placeholders. I need to do that art. Do that. I had some other people that were helpful and did some actual really well done placeholders to put them in. And as I started designing the game around this and looking at it, it just didn't feel right. And so I was like, okay, let me do something else. And so I did another type of placeholder, and through just pure graphic design, a little bit of typography, I came up with the ultimate design for my game as far as visual aesthetics that I wanted for it. If I didn't have the constraints put upon me of not having an artist and needing to figure that out in the time frame, I wouldn't have gotten to the place that I am now. A place that I really love the way this game is turning out to look. That when I see the box design, whenever I see the logo, whenever I see the cards, it just makes me happy. This is a game that visually I enjoy. I hope other people visually enjoy, but for me, this is a passion project. It's got to be something that I like. And so that was kind of the first constraint that came on me. The other constraint was money. I don't have a lot of money. I have some to put into this, but I didn't have a lot of money to be able to hire a bunch of people to do all the different aspects of this. So what I had to do was learn it, to watch the YouTube videos, to be able to figure out how to do the logistics behind it, which luckily I have a little bit of background in logistics, so I was able to ultimately understand whenever we're talking about freight and pallets and loading, all the fun things that you get into whenever you talk about logistics. I at least had the lingo down to be able to call up these fulfillment houses and be able to talk with them about it. So for those two reasons, it constrained upon me this timeline, limited resources, everything in that, to force me then to come out with this game and to come about it the way I have. Now, is it perfect? No, no game ever is. Some of you guys might have games you think are perfect, but ultimately, your game is only going to be able to reach a certain market, a certain type of people. And so for that, make that first target demographic yourself. And that was my constraint of saying, okay, I'm not going to be able to appease everyone. So if I can appease me, there's got to be enough people out there like me that will enjoy this game. And we'll go from there. But for you guys, this would be my encouragement to you. Maybe that thing you've just filmed, like there's been a block against you creatively. You can't figure out what you're going to do, how you're going to make this next element. The game mechanic just isn't working right. It's not about how many mechanics you can add. It's not about all the different elements or how hard you try to make the game and how different resources, all this, the pieces, and having that perfect miniature that looks just the right way. Sometimes it's about limiting yourself down. And when you limit yourself, that's where it finally flourishes and your creativity comes to life. In Stephen King's memoir on writing, there's a quote in there where he talks about killing your darlings. And it's a quote that resonates with me so much. What Stephen King talks about is the fact of any person that's creative. He's talking mainly in writing, but I'd say in game design and development, in art and painting and photography and videography and music, any of those things, we all get so personally attached to elements of our art that we can lose focus of the whole. That we can get so focused on that one element that we give up the better good for something here. And what he says is, your goal as a creative should be the entire project. And sometimes you have to kill your darlings, the things that you love so much, to be able to take that next step, to make the project as a whole better. That's what happened with me. is about a month into this. Actually, it was about a month and a half into this project. I was so fixated on wanting to have this simple battle mechanic. Whenever you were fighting a bad guy in the game, I wanted it to be so simple that it was just single dice, that you were rolling that 1d6 die, and on it, whatever the number that popped up, it would tell you, in essence, whether you caused damage or received damage, or if it was a draw. And then based upon certain situations, it was an advantage or a disadvantage, or they had a better chance of hitting you, and it was all just one die. And it took me, I think, like a week and a half, 2 weeks of just thinking about this, of how I wanted to do it and how I wanted to play with it, just everything going around with it, rolling, trying, running the numbers. And finally, I had this epiphany of like, oh, I can do this. And I remember being so excited about it. But that battle mechanic that I came up with was devoid from the game of the whole whenever I came up with it. And when I sat down to playtest with my wife, I put the battle mechanic in the game. And immediately the first battle she comes to and she tries to roll that dice, she hated it. And I hated it. I saw her struggling with it. It was math and it was complex and it just wasn't fun. And my game in particular is, beer and pretzel game. It's supposed to be something that's pretty simple, fun to learn, fun to play, quick and easy kind of thing. You shouldn't have to do a crazy amount of math. And she was sitting there struggling because that battle mechanic didn't match up with all the other elements that we had done in the game so far, of how the dice roll. So you were having to switch your brain between the two way too much. And in essence, it broke. And everything in me in that moment wanted to go like, no. I can make this happen. I can change the rest of the game to make this where this makes more sense. And I just remembered in that moment, like, no, that's not what we're here to do. And I even remember just looking at my wife and my friends, because they were there with us playtesting too, and I said, I have to kill my darling. And they knew. We've had these conversations before. It wasn't this weird thing where all of a sudden Greg's talking about killing his darling, so what the heck are you talking about? But we've had these conversations before with friends. And she goes, okay. And she's like, why don't you just do it this way? Use 2 colored dice, da-da-da-da-da-da. Highest dice win. And I had everything in me want to be like, no, I'm the one designing the game here, honey. Get out of the way. And I was like, you know what? Let me try real quick. Just thinking through that, like, okay, we're adding an extra die, but how more complicated it is. And boom, started working. And my brain immediately started. And if you have these moments whenever you're a creative that you start going through these things, and my brain started going like, oh, I can do this. And now because of that, I can add this element, and that works. And I start telling them, they're like, yeah. We start rolling the dice and it works. And I wouldn't have been able to get to a better battle mechanic, a better game as a whole, unless I was willing to kill my darlings. Some of us are holding so hard onto one element in our games that we're missing out on the opportunities all around us if we just open up our eyes and let go of it. Here's the beauty, though, of game design. You don't necessarily have to completely kill that darling. You can take that darling and put it away for a rainy day. Use it for another game. Make a game out of it in and of itself. You don't have to get rid of it completely, and it's not saying like never, it's just saying maybe not right now. Maybe not in this game. Put it in another game. Save it away for a rainy day. If you're doing any kind of challenge or you're putting out there, there's going to be a moment when you have to put yourself out there. You have to put your baby out there for people to actually experience it. And with 15 plus years of sales underneath my belt, I've learned to have thick skin. But I've had thick skin whenever it's somebody else's product that I've been selling. This is the first time I'm selling my own product in a way where I'm talking to other people. Even right now, talking to you guys, my brain's going like, oh, what are they going to think about this? And there was a guy a sales mentor that I had a long time ago that told me from one of his sales mentors that he learned this lesson that he called the 5-minute rule. And I would say this for you guys too. You're going to run into hiccups along the way. You're going to have haters. You're going to have people that complain about what you do. You're going to run into, all of a sudden, manufacturers not getting quotes back to you. You're going to run into a lot of hurdles as you go through this. I remember being on the phone with one of the fulfillment companies and telling him, yeah, I'm doing this game, 90 days. I was pumped. I was excited about it. And him just blowing me off completely. Just full on going like, yeah, that's not gonna work. You have multiple options to do in that situation. A lot of times what we want to do is we just want to curl up in a ball and die, or we want to fight. We want to get angry about it. And the 5-minute rule is this, is you get 5 minutes to complain. You have 5 minutes to get off that phone with them, to read that comment, to look at the situation and complain about it. I can't believe they did this. I can't believe they said that. I'm so... Just get it out. 5 minutes. If you have to set a timer, set a timer. And you have that 5 minutes to complain. And then after that, you stop complaining and you start looking for a solution. You have to start looking for the positive sides of this. You have to move on to the next step at that point. You get 5 minutes. Enjoy that 5 minutes. Go punch a pillow, yell outside, curse into a jar. I don't know what the heck you do. But when that's done, the reality is we have so many options. There are so many things that we can do in this world. And it's time at that point to step up and to look for those options, to see what you can do. How can you change? It's through these valleys, through these dips, through these hard times that ultimately we'll learn who we truly are and learn what we truly can do. So give yourself 5 minutes. Then get over yourself, get over the situation, and start looking for solutions, because they're available. But you'll never find them if you're still complaining. Okay, this last lesson is something that was taught to me years ago, but it's only recently truly sticked, and it's something I'm still learning every single day. I had a mentor whenever I first started being an entrepreneur. I hate that word, but I jokingly say I'm a serial entrepreneur. This is like the 5th business that I've started. A couple have been successful, a couple have really not been successful. But he sat me down and he's like, Greg, there's 3 things you do in business. Organize your business around this, focus on all 3 of these areas, and you have a good chance of being successful. Grind it out, but keep focusing on these 3. He said it's marketing, it's operations, and it's finance. It says marketing is how you bring in customers. Operations is everything needed to create that product for your customer or service for your customer. And then finance is all the resources you need to keep the entire business going. And that's financial and legal, that's HR, everything involved in that. You focus on those 3 things. 1, you'll have customers. 2, you'll have a product. And 3, you'll stay out of jail. I like the 3rd one too. He said the most important of all 3 of those though, and all 3 are important. It's not saying you can neglect one or the other, but he said the most important of all those is your marketing, your sales. You have to bring in more customers. It doesn't matter how good of an idea you have. If nobody knows about your product or your services, you don't have a business. A business is here to make money, and that business has to have a customer. And that customer won't know about you unless you tell them about you. There's the phrase is, the philosophical phrase is, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's around, does it make noise? And I've always heard that says, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's around, who cares? It doesn't matter if it makes a noise or not. If nobody's there to experience or see that happen, or hear that happen one way or another. And that's true in business. You could have the greatest board game of all time, but it won't be considered that because nobody will know about it until you learn how to market it. Day one, your job should be getting the name out of your business, of your ideas, sharing it with as many people as you can, networking, getting out there, growing that exposure as much as possible. That's why right off the bat, whenever I knew I had this idea, I opened up a social media account with the name Dialone Games on every social media platform that I could think of. And I started sharing this as much as possible online. Because I knew ultimately I would have this idea vetted out, but I needed people to be along for the journey to hear about it. You need to share your journey with those around you so they can share it with others around them, so that when it does come time to actually sell the product, you actually have a customer that's there. Now, have I done well at this? No, I haven't. We're a few weeks away at this point of you guys seeing this video from me launching the Kickstarter. I'm planning on launching, I think, October 20th, right around that date. Originally was the 90 days was October 1st. And I was like, that's what I'm gonna do. And then somebody pointed out that if I start right around then, I will end right during the US presidential elections. And I said, that's a good point. I am going to adjust it. So you guys are hearing that now. I've already told my followers at this point. But ultimately, that's my biggest fear in this. I got a game. I enjoy the game playing it. It's designed well. I have manufacturers lined up. I have fulfillment lined up. I have everything lined up and ready to go to produce this game if I wanted to right now. But if the Kickstarter doesn't fund, I can always do one-offs through online sources that do the prototyping, and I can always have a game. And I can always play that with my friends and family. But my bigger goal for this was to create something that everybody could enjoy, that it was something bigger than me, that something would go on. And if I wanted that to happen, I need to market. You need to think about marketing from day one. Have a plan. Have a strategy about how you're going to do that. Build a team around it. Build a community around it. Like, we're good about having friends over for game night, and we know what it feels like to be in that kind of community. Broaden that out. Make it bigger than yourself. And from day one, market. From day two, market. Day 180, market. You might think that market is a bad word. Okay, marketing might be a bad word to you. Don't think of it as marketing. Think of it as sharing, grabbing people's attention, helping them know about something that you've put your blood, sweat, and tears into growing and making, and bring them along for that journey. I hope some of this was helpful for you guys this morning. I really do. I mean, these are all high-level concepts. I want to be honest. I mean, if it comes to game design, I'm learning this. I'm learning it just now. I'm learning every step along the way. But hopefully the few things that I've learned over the last 90 days would be helpful to you guys as you head into your next 90 days. Maybe this can inspire you to do your next step. And man, I'd love for you to be a part of my journey. If you want to follow me, I'm Dialone Games on every social media platform that you can think of, except for the ones that I don't know of. So follow me on there, and I'd love for you to come along for this journey. If there's any questions you have, shoot me a direct message, shoot me an email, greg@dialonegames.com. I'll try to answer them. I have limited time in my life, but I promise I'll get back to them as much as I can. Once again, thank you so much for listening. Hope you guys have a great day, and I hope you guys are able to achieve your dreams.